So thank you so much for joining us today at Indigo Moon. So years ago, my grandfather was actually not exercising the right diet. He wasn't eating the right foods. He'd make house calls, go and visit different people who were shut in at home and could not come attend church services. So while he was doing this running around and making sure that he preached the gospel to these people, sometimes they didn't have money and they always wanted to give him a donation because he made a house call. Sometimes they give him food, and sometimes he declined and sometimes he wouldn't, especially if it were a favorite meal. So as time progressed, he ended up having to go to the doctors. Now, he was eating out there and then also coming home, and my grandmother would prepare certain food for him. So finally he goes in to the doctor because his feet, he seemed to not have the same feeling in his feet, and he was falling. So he went to the doctor's office and they told him that he was going to have his legs amputated. And he didn't like this idea at all. Who would? I mean, you're so used to being very independent. He thought he'd lose his independence and everything. So he decided that he was going to allow them to, amputate his legs. So that happened. And they ended up giving him these legs that he could attach and utilize so that he could walk around as though he'd never, had them amputated. Now, it wasn't as comfortable at first, but he began to walk in them more commonly, and he also ended up finding a wheelchair. And they got in the wheelchair, and he'd ride around in this wheelchair. Now, it wasn't an electric wheelchair. It was an automatic wheelchair where he had to use his arms a lot. And my grandfather was very strong. At first, everyone thought that he would be depressed. But he didn't give up. The same messages that he prepared in regards to strengthening the community were the same messages he used internally. A lot of times he had to talk to himself in order to push himself forward, My grandmother still prepared his meals on time or what have you. He still ended up having to minister at the church. And he still got around quite, alarmingly, quite commonly, as though, so he'd ask people, different relatives, to give him a ride somewhere or whatever. And, sometimes people just did not want to give him a ride, and his pride was affected because he's always been independent. And they did not want him to drive anymore because now, of course, they have other equipment that you could use to drive vehicles, but, they just really felt like he should slow down and, be home more. Well, that one monkey don't stop on no show, as they say. My grandfather got out there and he was consistently going to where he needed to go. Sometimes we will allow the different problems that happen in our life to stop us from what it is that we want to accomplish. Sometimes we have to look and live vicariously through other people so that we can gain that internal strength and move forward. You don't ever want to have anything holding you back from the very rewarding experiences that God grants you. It's important that we remember that sometimes we're going to be met with challenges, but so long as we believe and know that God will guide us through it. You have to have that conversation, develop that personal relationship with God so that God will get you through. Even the times when you feel like you cannot make that necessary move, have that conversation. God will guide you through it. Everyone can sometimes be met with the challenge of something that you don't think you'll be able to get through. But so long as you have God, you can make the necessary connection because God's not going anywhere. We might decide to forget about him, but he doesn't forget about us. So remember that, and you have a lovely day. Thank you for joining us here at Indigo Moon.